So, Briahna, Joe Gray, and Sam Seder. Did I say their names correctly?
I think so.
You know
I
them a
mean,
bit more,
yeah,
and had
yeah,
a
yeah.
debate.
Sam Cedar, Sam Seder. I'm not sure. But I always forget because everybody calls him Sam. But Brianna Joy Gray. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, we got it right. Had a debate about force to vote on the Bad Fate podcast.
And
Yeah, and it was
I was
moderated
I
by
don't.
Virgil.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But would you say he was moderator or he was also in part of the debate? Yeah, yeah,
No, he
you're right.
definitely wasn't part of the debate. He kind of had like a semi-moderator role in a way. And
Role.
I don't know his last name unless his last name is actually Texas. Is that the case?
I think so. I
Okay.
thought it's Virgil Text. I don't know. Maybe it's a pseudonym or something. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, that even adds to it. I wouldn't be surprised. And so at the end of this video, we're going to look at some of the comments that people posted in the comment box of that video, and they're absolutely hilarious. It was my favorite part. But okay, so let's
Oh,
get
wow.
into it. So first, I watched this because you told me that you saw it, and it's about force to vote. So I'm interested in that. If not, I don't really watch either of them. So Brianna Joy Gray, I just found out about her recently through the Bernie Sanders campaign, and now she has this podcast. And Sam Seder, so YouTube recommended him to me like last year, and I immediately stopped liking him because the first video that I watched about him was this video where he was criticizing Jimmy Dore, and he was criticizing him about being on Fox News and saying that that's not good, which I don't agree with. And the second one was about how Jimmy Dore didn't know this like thing about tax, and he made a big deal about it. So I never watched him again, and YouTube didn't really recommend him to me. But so he showed up here, and I liked some of the arguments that he made, though I didn't totally not like all of his arguments. So to get going, I wanted to say what I think is the main disagreement between them, then throw it back to you, and then after that we can talk about a bunch of other interesting things that happened. So from what I understand, their disagreement is that Brianna Joy Gray likes the force to vote strategy, tactic, as well as the issue. So she really argues that yes, we should have asked for Medicare for all here. And Sam, his first thing that he doesn't agree with is that sure, I like the strategy. The strategy is not bad, but I don't think that should be the issue. And on top of that, he says that when he found out that Jimmy was the person really behind this, he says, then I really didn't like it, which I find to be ridiculous as well. But I got that to be the main argument. And I guess the other main argument
So
is
wait,
kind of,
wait, no,
yeah,
uh,
go ahead.
I wasn't clear. I didn't quite
Yeah.
understand what you said. The main argument was that he didn't
Their
like
main
the
disagreement,
strategy.
sorry, is that Brianna likes everything about it. Let's put it that way. She liked the strategy and the issue, whereas he says sure
And the
for
ask.
and the ask exactly. He says sure
Okay,
that
okay.
could be a good strategy, that is a good strategy, and that it is maybe used and all that, but the ask exactly should not be this. So from what I understood, this was one of their primary disagreements. And after that is also Sam says, I don't like Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore is not a good person, and this issue is all about him. So that's why I don't like this issue either. And I think the other
To be fair,
no, he said that.
he didn't say he didn't say. I mean, he did say he doesn't like Jimmy Dore and stuff, but he said that Jimmy Dore has a uh, has a different interest in mind, which is destruction of,
Yeah.
like that's Sam Seder's view, that it's a destruction of Democratic Party in favor of a third party. You know, that's that's the that's the thing that he was pointing out, which I don't agree with. But but if that's true, then that's a real issue. You know what I mean? The motivation behind the people who are behind the.
Yeah, so I guess just like TYT kind of, at least like Anna, I mean, Anna in her tweet that we showed before, she was much more like clear. She was like, oh no, I like the issue. I just don't like Jimmy Dore. But to me, it seems like it's the same thing. So you're saying that, okay, if you think the people behind it, their motives are not right, then that is a good enough a good enough reason for you to, not associate with this particular strategy.
I think that's what Sam Seder was saying. Like he used the car analogy, that the driver and all that. I think that was his main disagreement. That was, I think they had two major disagreements. One was that the motives behind the people leading the movement. Second was that he was saying that there was a good chance that the establishment Democrats would have called their bluff, and then they would have been damaged more in media, and they would have lost the support of their base because they would be the ones that are freezing a Democratic Congress to go ahead with reversing Trump's agenda. I don't agree with this argument. I don't think this is what would have happened. However, again, that's a genuine, it's possible. It's certainly possible. And frankly, if I have some agreements with Sam Seder, it's here that the idea that necessarily American people would, rise up over this, not just, by the way, Medicare for all the issues that I think David Sirota outlined very eloquently. In 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 that case, I'm not quite sure if American people would be. So, there's a good chance that you can get basically smeared on by mainstream TV, and it might work.
Yeah, no, okay, so that second argument, I totally agree, and I think it's a bit exaggerated just because the fact that Americans are for Medicare for all and they support that. I think some other conclusions were drawn, especially from Briahna and other, and how supportive people would be suddenly for such a strategy. But just coming back to the first thing, even if Sam says, I don't like the motives and all that about Jimmy behind it, I still don't find that to be enough, especially in the beginning, if you actually think that the idea is good, for not having engaged on it more, because other people could have become, more prominent. And he kept on saying it was all about Jimmy, and he was on all the shows and everywhere where like debates were taking place, and that's because, well, I guess he came up with the idea in the beginning, so he's going to be everywhere talking about it.
Popular. I mean, even in that debate, Briahna pointed out that somebody else came up originally with the idea. Jimmy popularized it, and then that famous LA player, I think football player, sort of brought it to national attention through tweets. But again, I completely disagree. I don't think Jimmy's after. I do think Jimmy's after creating a third party now, but I don't think he would. If Democrats did this, it wouldn't make him unhappy. You know what I mean? He's not somebody who's been paid by a group of secret donors to create a third party to destroy Democratic Party. I think that's absurd. But if you believe that, then of course it makes sense for you not to join, because if you don't trust somebody when they tell you that I'm going to even make you rich, or if I'm going to act in your self-interest, when you don't trust them, then that's the whole issue. Is the whole thing is undermined in a way, fundamentally. But yeah, I personally I don't think his objections, while they could be valid, I don't think in this case are. And I do think his personal animosity with Jimmy Dore does taint his view of the issue. I like to point out, I think, to be honest, again, to be fair to Sam Seder, I don't think he was one of the few that actually originally supported the idea. And he wasn't one of the people who shat on the idea so much on Twitter or on YouTube. Not, at least I didn't see. I think somebody like Nomoki Kunz, somebody who goes on Sam Seder show all the time, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian, perhaps even somebody like that would have been a better choice of debate with Briahna.
But they wouldn't have the debate.
Was kind of middle of the.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, no, that's a very good point that you pointed that out, and I think that's why there was at least some value to the argument. But that kind of makes it maybe another disagreement that they had was that in Brianna's, I feel like she was saying that no, you should like this no matter what, and that you are, why were you not more supportive of it, and you should have loved that idea. And it's up to him if he likes it or not, or how much he likes it. And you're right, he didn't seem like he went out of his way, at least for as far as seen, like Cenk, to really shit all over this idea. And then just your point about the animosity towards Jimmy Dore, I mean, that is really insane. The video that I mentioned in the beginning about his criticism of Jimmy Dore being on Fox News, I wanted to find that, but as soon as I put their names together, there's like, he has so many videos that he made on Jimmy Dore. I was like, okay, forget about this. And they had their debate in 2016.
That's what put me off Sam Seder, because to be honest, a lot of his content is great and you agree with it. But when it came to Jimmy Dore, and Jimmy Dore, there's a time Jimmy Dore calls him on his show. And I highly recommend everybody listening that, because it does seem like, oh, they're trying to patch things up and stuff. But then after that, he goes on because when he made that phone call, I would assume that, the reverse could be true too. Like Sam Seder could make a phone call to Jimmy, or directly talk to him. But instead, he keeps on making these videos that are, in my view, very smug and very, it feels cheap shots. For example, he's very keen on pointing out that Jimmy Dore doesn't understand, for example, the way Supreme Court works, or that, or this. First of all, everybody has mistakes in terms of predicting the future in political, commentating. Secondly, the way he does it is very smug. I would say I agree with you that I think Briahna at some points in the debate was very volatile. It was not, you prefer debate that is a bit calmer or more exact, but he's, he wouldn't let her finish a sentence with snide comments in the middle, right? And those things, I mean, I have this fault as well. This is a big fault of mine. When somebody, just keeps doing a snide comment in the middle of your, it does irritate you a lot and makes you a bit more angry, and your passion somewhat goes up. So because I kept saying, just please let her finish one, sometimes in the beginning, especially. Later on, he stopped, I think, doing that so much. But that I think that added to the whole tension of the debate.
It's funny you say that.
And by the way, I like to point out, Dore keeps making fun of Jimmy Dore for not knowing what would have happened in Supreme Court and not knowing taxes stuff. He himself, in this debate, it was clear that he had no understanding of how the election of the Speaker of the House works. Virgil and Briahna corrected him on multiple times on the fact that a Republican could not become a leader unless Democrats vote for him. Something, by the way, which I was not clear on until 2 weeks ago, when one of the commentators was kind enough to leave us a link and explanation. So again, I'm not saying that this is something that everybody should know, or if you don't know, you shouldn't talk about politics ever. I used to talk about politics before knowing that. But if if there are faults like that in your own knowledge, then you shouldn't make fun of others so much, or you shouldn't undermine others through this tactic so much, I think.
Yeah, no, that's exactly, Sam. So let me add a few things. So those comments that you actually mentioned, another one of our viewers or someone who viewed our video also posted the same thing yesterday. So at the end, I wanted to go over those as well. But I agree with one thing. I don't agree with another thing. I disagree with another thing you say. Towards Jimmy Dore, and the obsession that he suddenly has with, like, oh, you don't know how this part of the tax code works, or like, this whatever Supreme Court. And him himself, you just pointed out, he didn't know how this part of the voting worked. And I don't blame them. How could you? But then attacking people on that, he says that Jimmy Dore didn't know about filibustering. I doubt it. But when he talks about this, it is very demeaning. But with Briahna in the debate, I didn't get the impression, actually. It's interesting that you say that. And people talk about this in the comments, so maybe we'll discuss it again. But I didn't feel like he was interrupting her that much. And that, they were having a debate at that point. So I didn't feel like he was interrupting her too much or saying a lot of, shitty comments here and there. I don't know. That's kind of my
No, no,
impression.
I think it was a I think it was a long debate, and I think in the beginning he not interrupting, but a snide comments type
Hmm.
thing. Like you're saying, yeah, that would work, or yeah,
Yeah.
that's out of the, like I can't remember a specific example because I watched a week ago. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm
Yeah.
misrepresenting stuff in my memory, but yeah, it wasn't so much interruption. It was just uh, a snide comments, or she would say, like, she would ask him, this is something I remember, she would ask him what would be your ask, or what
Hmm.
would be your strategy, and he would go on this long rambling thing, and it felt like me just politician talk
Yeah.
sometimes. But again, watched it over a week ago, so I apologize if I'm misrepresenting anyone.
I mean, before I get into this thing about the strategy and the issue that I want to say, this just reminded me of, he said one of the funniest things in the beginning. So he's like, yeah, I heard about this idea, and then I went and spoke to a few of my sources about it. I was like, that's such a weird thing to hear. You never hear
Oh,
that in like
and by the
progressive
way,
media. So
yeah.
I was like, I don't, what
And I love, by
sources?
the way, how he said, I can't disclose my
Yeah.
sources. And it felt
I
like,
was
what
like,
are
just
you,
stop
Edward
talking. That's so
Snowden?
cringeworthy. Please don't. That part was so cringe from the word source. And then when Brianna asked them like twice, I wouldn't even asked because it was just the
Yeah,
stupidest sounding thing. And then it's like, we all have our
it's
sources.
too nice.
Some are on the record, some are off. I had no idea where he was going with that. That was just funny.
And by the way, there was something I realized in watching it this time, and it broke my heart somewhat. Gore Vidal, who's my political, like, he's the
Yeah.
hero of mine. I can't think of anybody who's
Okay,
closer
we should make some
in
videos about
views
him.
than he is politically. Yeah, Gore Vidal is just, I mean, it would be like, and there's so much out there on him that it would be a waste, perhaps.
There's a
But
reality asserts itself on
yeah,
him.
anyway, what do you,
The show from
reality?
the
Oh,
Real News
YouTube.
Network.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They have one
Really?
of
Wow.
those,
All
yeah,
right. Yeah,
99% sure.
that's the thing. I didn't know he had shows with Sam Seder, and that kind of broke my
Wow.
heart a little. That I never got to see him, but Sam Seder did.
No way.
But that's just a personal pity.
On the
Yeah,
radio or
about
YouTube?
on a radio. I think on the rate, because he passed away about 10 years ago. So I don't know if it was on YouTube yet, but
Okay.
yeah, I'm not quite clear. But yeah, I realized that, and it just he's Gore Vidal and Hitchens are two people that I'll never forgive myself for not trying hard enough to see them when they were alive.
Yeah. Wow,
Although
that's
they say never
interesting.
meet your heroes, so, yeah, you never know.
That true. Okay, let's move. I want to make a
That
few other points and discuss a few other things. So one is that I find this to be unfair. Whenever some people agree with the strategy or the ask and being like, okay, asking for Medicare for all like this for forced to vote is not the best thing to ask for. It's just maybe too much. Maybe if you ask for something else, you could get it, and another strategy would work better for Medicare for all. So when people say that about the strategy, or for in the long term, even achieving Medicare for all, it's really unfair to say, oh, you're against Medicare for all, which seems to be a lot of people think this way. So I mean, I think that's really, really unfair.
I don't think Jimmy Dore and stuff, they don't even say you're not for Medicare for all. They say you're not a real, you're not really fighting. You're just a careerist. I think it's even more, it's a more fundamental insult in some ways.
But
And
maybe
I
to
agree
other
with him,
people,
to be
to
honest. There's
general
a,
people, to like, I guess, yeah, not to
oh, the public?
politicians.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. Oh, of course, of course. Sorry, I thought you mean AOC type things. And I really highly recommend you watch, and everybody watches, the another video from Bad Faith podcast with Richard Wolff. I forget the exact title, but it has soft corruption in it. The something soft corruption, and yeah, it talks about that you don't, because Kyle Kalinske keeps saying that the Justice Democrats aren't corrupt because they don't take big money from big corporations. But you don't have to take big money. You have to be a careerist, to be honest, to be corrupt. And I think a lot of them are careerists. That, by the way, I am in some ways careerist as well in my life. So I don't like say they're humans, but when they talk about corruption, they don't mean literally getting a bag of money from someone. Sometimes it means you trying to keep a relationship with certain people, safe for future purposes.
No, I definitely agree with that, and I don't myself want to make that criticism too much, so I don't turn out to be a hypocrite. But that is a good point about the difference
Yeah.
between that also being a careerist, and then it really depends to
By
what
the way,
degree you go for. But the other thing is that they're politicians, so really their career should be about making the best for their constituents. That's kind of their objective. I mean, it's a special, when you work
for
for public, it's a special kind of career. You kind of have to accept that it's not about you, whereas all other walks of life are kind of
make
about you.
no, make the best for your constituents, not make the best for yourself and pose as something else for your
Yeah.
constituents. But I get your point, and I like to point out that anybody who I have criticized, if you pay me significant amount of money, I will change my opinion like that. It's no problem. It won't be just feel free. Very
Okay.
cheap, like
Let's
half a
tell me
million
what you
would
think
bring.
about this. Tell me what you think about this. Okay. So Brianna kind of argues this is why she thinks this issue was the good one to ask right now. So she says, look, everybody mentions this in the left, that there are these polls that show that Medicare for all is like the number one issue, or like a very important issue for a lot of Americans.
Mhm.
And then, so she takes kind of that idea and then also says that, look, so many people have lost their jobs during the pandemic and therefore they have lost their health insurance. So she says like around 15 million people. So she's like, this is why healthcare is right now the most important issue and why it's so important. And then I even feel like she says that a lot of the deaths and the cases in the United States are due to the fact that there's no healthcare. Now, I don't 100%, if you don't have
I don't think
healthcare.
she's. Yeah.
Well, she mentions that's what I get the feeling for.
No,
I
I
think that's
think
the impression
she's
that she gets.
saying that like when you have such a bad healthcare system and people don't go to doctors enough, and
Yeah.
people's health concerns are, it just makes the society as a whole weaker in terms of physique. So
I don't know. I mean, I
guess
think
they're more
if even
vulnerable.
the states had amazing healthcare, I'm sure a lot of people would be better off once they went and got their service. I can just imagine once they get, treatment and then all these insane bills and working with insurance companies, all that. But even if there was Medicare for all, if there was Trump and everything else was the same, and the whole thing with the masks and not taking it seriously, I doubt there would have been too much difference in that situation. But in the situation in the States. But let's put that aside. She also thinks that right now, because of that, Medicare for all is important in people's minds, and they're making this association of like, oh wow, there's a pandemic and we don't even have free healthcare. But I don't think people in their heads, they make that kind of association. And even though Medicare for all is a very important issue for them, it seems that the other issues trump it, such as beating Trump. Biden was one of the people who was outright against Medicare for all, and he still won. So I do agree that it's important. I just don't think the association and how Brianna sees it in her head, I don't think that's that widespread in the States. If you ask them about coronavirus for people, I don't think Medicare for all would come up a lot in the conversation if you talk to, general people.
I I agree. I mean, I don't know, to be honest, because actually I was gonna say I completely agree, but then I remembered, for example, the comments we had about Jimmy Dore stuff, that I said that I don't like how angry he gets and stuff, and people were like, well, if you were in that position, you would be. And I do, and media and even YouTube and whatever, they give a very narrow view of the society.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe there are actually, who would have thought there are shaman right-wingers that are going to storm the Capitol. Just a couple of weeks ago, if you ask, there is a shaman who, I don't know, there was a great, by the way, documentary on the people who stormed the Capitol a couple of weeks ago. And if I don't think anybody would have thought these people even exist, some of them, So there may be a large segment of American population that is maybe not necessarily they don't know the term Medicare for all, but if you health issues, uh, they would be easily mobilized or something like that. So,
No,
but
100%. I agree with that. I'm
at
just saying
first
when you talk
sight,
about
at first
COVID,
sight,
that's not, I don't think that's the first association that people make in their heads when you talk about the hardships
oh
of COVID and
no,
everything this time.
but when because your insurance is connected to your employers,
Yeah.
the people who have lost their jobs may connect it a bit more,
Yeah.
They may, because they understand that now that they don't have a job, if they get COVID, there is no like
Yeah.
help for them.
No, no.
Although Biden is announcing that, but no, but at first sight and generally, and I mentioned it in the very beginning, I agree that I just don't think necessarily if they did force the vote, if Pelosi called their bluff, I don't know how would have the media game would have played out, And I like with Jeremy Corbyn, that example keeps coming to my mind because Jeremy Corbyn was somebody, in my view, that was as close as to a flawless character. Had fought against race, anti-Semitism, everything, like his record was perfectly clean. But the media, years and years of badgering, they can destroy you. They can destroy your public image.
Yeah, but
So
can
I
you
don't know how would have the media game like that.
okay, I want to come back to the media, but there's one thing I don't quite, I think, understand. When you're talking about called their bluff, so called their bluff that they would have not voted for Nancy Pelosi, but for somebody else to be the House Speaker.
Like yeah, they would have voted, let's say, for Barbara Lee.
But why would that be
Nancy
a
Pelosi
bluff
wouldn't have.
necessarily?
No, but because it's a bluff, because in a sense that, yeah, you're right. It's not really a bluff because they would do it. So
They
let's say
could have.
they did that. Force the vote would have happened, right? And Nancy Pelosi wouldn't have become the speaker. So you would have a week or a month until they keep all the alliances shift and all the negotiations takes place. And during that month or week or whatever it is, the mainstream media would certainly attack the progressives for being the ones that are basically they would say they are attempting to stop the Democratic Congress and they're allowing Trump's policies to continue in this. They are ruining this great moment, So that would have how the media would have covered it, I think,
Yeah, no, I couldn't
But
agree more with that. 100%. So that's I was actually gonna just say that. So Briahna,
by the way,
she yeah, go ahead.
No, I just was gonna say this is all how the media would have covered it.
Yeah.
This is not something I agree with.
Yeah, no, that is also how I think the media would have covered it. So Briahna, she thought it was different. She was like, oh, once it goes to the next vote and stuff, the media will be there. And she was like, who do you think people will support? Nancy Pelosi, that most Democrats and Americans hate, or AOC and the Quad? And I was like, yes, most Americans, maybe they hate Nancy Pelosi if you like ask them. But if you think in this dynamic, they will aggressively be involved. She used the word aggressively and support AOC. And then the media. So yeah, I definitely didn't think what she thought, how that would then pick up momentum in the media and with people everywhere. I thought that was very disillusional.
No,
and
it
actually,
would have
Sam,
picked up.
huh?
I think. Go.
No,
Sorry.
and Sam Seder says that this is when it's a fantasy. What's the word? It's like it's fantastical, and I think I would agree. I mean, yeah, the media will pick up. I don't know if that's what you were gonna say. The media will pick up, but the media might pick up not to the extent that you want, not in the way that you want, and then for that to reach the wider public, I highly doubt it that quickly like that.
Yeah, no. I think the wider public would have heard about it and they would have been actually like angry, but the media doesn't care about the wider public, neither the Democratic Party. Especially
but I mean, even
right
the
after they
wider
got
public,
into elected office.
Even the wider
Like,
public.
what can they do? Let's say they mobilize. They can write letters, and they ignore their letters. And then for the next 5 years, you would have a sustained campaign against progressives. In my view, though, you're gonna have that anyway, so you might as well force the vote. That's my
No,
view,
yeah, you
because
might
you're
as
gonna
well.
have this,
Exactly.
and
No, I
you know,
100% agree. I
so
just
this is
don't
happening.
think, yeah, I
I don't.
just don't think you would get the support that you would think. I don't think people will be that passionate about this part of it because it will be hard to explain to it just because the media will be so against it. So in such a short period of time, I just don't think it would have had the
Yeah,
consequences and
and
the
again,
reactions. It.
I I complete I completely agree with you, and I'll add that even if they did, they couldn't do anything. So
Yeah.
what's the point?
But okay, I mean, I don't know if you have much else, but one thing that I wanted to say, like before I forget, is if I was American and as a leftist in the states, I would prioritize and think that Medicare for all and public health care is perhaps like the most important issue to focus on in the states domestically, and somehow to pass that over time and have a longer sustained strategy. And I think initially the strategy was through Bernie Sanders, but now since Bernie Sanders is gone, I think, I don't know who, I definitely don't have the ideas or what, but another slightly long term, 5 to 10 years or whatever, some kind of plan with objective and momentum should put in place. And this forced the vote thing, definitely, I don't think it even made it to the activist circles. It didn't even make it to the wider progressive media, I would say. It was very much focused within a certain part of the progressive media, and that was it.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're pretty much correct. I would say it got the whole progressive movement uh, did in a way cover it and paid attention to it, but no, it didn't break out in any major way because AOC had to go on Intercept and gave that apologetic interview. But yeah, I don't know about I think America is just such a large country with such a complicated system that I think it would be tough for me to comment in terms of prioritizing,
Yeah, but I mean,
which
healthcare,
is
free healthcare, I can just imagine just how crazy it is. If you don't have healthcare and then you have to make the kind of decisions of going to the hospital and not going to the hospital. I mean, it's just such a ridiculous thing for people to have to think about. But yeah, but the whole thing of coronavirus, I mean, if everything else in the States, I mean, Brazil has free healthcare, public healthcare, UK has public healthcare, Italy has public healthcare, and all these countries are, just not doing as bad as the
yeah.
US, but they're not far behind.
Well, I have some debates there. We have to do a debate on best medical system at some point.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Okay. All right, Sam. So I don't have much else on my side, and but before moving on to the comments, there's just one thing that kept on coming up, and I don't really even know too much what it's about, so I couldn't comment. But the whole Pago thing. Do you know anything about that, or maybe all our
Yeah,
listeners and viewers can? Okay, why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit
I
about it?
mean, to be honest, this is not something I'm an expert on. So some of our viewers and commentators are, to be honest, they get, yeah, they know a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
But PAYGO, as far as I know, is a system. It was a law that I think Democrats themselves may have passed, that you have to, like, if you want to add a new government program, for example, to help the kids with something, you have to say how you pay for it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're gonna say these taxes are gonna go up, uh, and then you can do it. You have to basically justify any. It's basically one. It was one of those laws that deficit hawks brought about to stop any increase in government spending. And from what I understand, in the latest budget, the progressive have managed to get exemptions from PAYGO for health and a couple of other issues, so they can be deal with money wouldn't be a concern on these issues. But PAYGO is yeah, basically you have to show and explain how you pay for a new federal government plan.
Okay, I get it. And then so Sam, Seder, and Brianna, and I guess this did happen in reality. Is that was a demand put up? That was an ask put up to Nancy Pelosi in exchange for votes to get rid of
It's
Pago, or was it just a suggestion?
no, nobody knows what happened in the room deals, but it's been a
Sure.
demand from the progressive left for a very long time to get rid of PAYGO as a whole. But it seems that in this in these backdoor negotiation and stuff, they only managed to get a few exemptions. And this was something that was touted as a victory by Bernie Sanders and AOC. I think she talks about it even in the Intercept interview, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, all right, brilliant.
But
Thank
it's
you.
yeah, no, but I think when I saw Jimmy talk about it, he was saying that those exemptions for PayGo would have happened anyway, or it's very little. It's very, it's not a big win for us.
Yeah, I see. Okay, all right. Let's get going through some of these comments. So the first comments that we're going to look at very quickly, we've already talked about them, are comments actually left in our videos. And you actually understand these and explain it better. So I think this one, so you've seen it, right? This one, the person explains that, go ahead, go explain that they would have had to vote for Republicans specifically or not voted at all for Republican
right.
to have been nominated, right? If they would have voted for another Democrat, then it would have just kept on going until someone has the majority of votes. Right?
Of
More
course.
or less?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. First, let's give a big shout out to Evold Bracco for her fantastic, research skills and knowledge on the issue, because like I watched so many videos on YouTube and nobody could explain it to me, but he did finally. What you need is a simple majority, but by votes cast by name, right? So that means that I forget what's the exact number. Let's just say 50 for the sake of argument, right? Out of 100. So if you get 50, so if you get more votes than the other person, you win. But the votes need to be cast by name. So if progressive Democrats abstain, right, enough of them abstain, then Kevin McCarthy could become the next speaker, right? If they don't vote for anyone. But progressives weren't planning to abstain. They were planning to vote for Hakeem Jeffries or for Barbara Lee, perhaps, right? And by the way, both people said, we don't want your vote. We support Nancy Pelosi, right? They could have done that. That's at their discretion. And in that case, nobody would have reached a simple majority, because there are not enough Republicans to reach simple majority for them, right? And then basically would have meant that further negotiations and conflict within the party, shifting of alliances, that would have led to either a new leader or Pelosi giving some concessions to this side or to that side, that type of thing. That's what would have happened if she didn't reach simple majority. Other scenario that Kevin McCarthy could have become the leader was that a significant, let's say about 10 or 20 Democrats vote with Republicans for him. But that scenario is extremely, I think it's just, so the people like Cenk, Uygur and others who have argued that it's possible, like Sam Seder mentioned in that debate, he thinks it may have happened. It's extremely unlikely, because progressives were not saying that you should abstain from the vote. Yeah. They were saying that you should vote for somebody else, cast by name, as it's technically called. And it was like neither progressives nor any other Democrats would have gone to vote for Kevin McCarthy. What if they mean that there is a significant number of right-wing Democrats that would have voted for Kevin McCarthy to become the leader? Then I think that's a whole different debate about the fact that should a party which has two wings that are so opposite of each other even exist, that some of them would vote for Kevin McCarthy to, some of the right wing of the party, because, they would be fed up with the gridlock in the Congress or whatever. So, yeah, I think the arguments basically, so I think Evold Bracco helped us to clarify that the arguments that, the force the vote may have handed the speakership to a Republican, he or she helped us to clarify that it's not possible, or it was extremely, 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 extremely unlikely.
Yeah, no. Perfect. Okay, thank you for recapping that like this. So Do you have the next one under your eyes too? The one by Stephen Sray. So this one was
Yeah,
left just
sure.
like yesterday. So I believe this person is also saying the same
Oh, I
thing, right?
haven't read this.
But yeah, and they're also referring to the same article that explains it. But yeah, he says the only way a Republican could become Speaker in this
Oh,
new Congress would have required Dems to vote for a specific Republican, so option one, or Dems to not vote at all, which will lower the numbers of received votes to claim a majority. So at the very least, he goes on saying that forced to vote could have yielded a different speaker other than Nancy, as she has proven to be a huge roadblock to change. Well, that's not at the very least. That would have been a huge accomplishment if they went through that. But yeah, I think Stephen is
no, but you
saying
may
so.
get somebody just like Nancy
Yeah,
Pelosi or worse. But
that's true.
at
Yeah,
this,
yeah.
but I would
True. It's
argue
not
the
like
next
the
person. Yeah, but the next person would come to power knowing that somebody like him or her, Nancy Pelosi, was outset
yeah.
because she never compromised. She never gave anything to the left. So, that would have a psychological effect on, even if you're a right winger, you might be more open to compromise.
Yeah, no, very, very good. So I think yeah, it's more than at least. I
But
think the minimum, the bare minimum that some people have argued is that then it'd be on paper who is for and who is against Medicare for all. There'll be record on it. That's kind of at least the. Okay, but now let's.
yeah, I have a major disagreement with that argument. Sorry, quickly,
Yeah,
because they wouldn't have. It's just because it's. I mean, at the time we all thought that Senate would be in the hand of Republicans, so they wouldn't mind just voting for somebody that Biden is going to veto,
yeah.
as long as they're sure Biden is going to veto it.
Okay, so now let's move on to the comments made under the debate. Okay, at the Bad Fate podcast. So do you have the first one? I'm gonna
I
start.
haven't read any.
Okay, I'm gonna start from here. You don't have to
No,
prepare.
no, no.
It's the one that starts
I
with
I
Cenk
thought.
from Jacques Zai. Do you have that one on your eyes? Okay. So it says Cenk. So this is Cenk apparently like talking to Anna. Anna, get in here. Briahna Joe Gray just called us a major player. This was so funny. So I think it's in reference to, Briahna saying you didn't do it and the Young Turks weren't involved. So, we missed out on a big chunk of the progressives. And
Well,
I think
Young
she thinks that
Turks,
maybe Young Turks
Young
might have, yeah.
Young Turks is the biggest so-called progressive, outlet, and a lot of people that later on, Jimmy Dore included, that
Yeah.
don't agree with Young Turks started from there. So I get it. It's a
But I
good one.
think if you put the number of views and subscribers together and consistent number of views on issues, Kyle Kalinske is right up there because the Young Turks can go from like getting 30,000 on something important to suddenly 1 million, like their next viral video.
Mhm.
But Kyle Kalinske has this like
Yes.
steady, often like 70 to 200,000 always views. And so yeah, he's another huge
I mean, it's a
person
whole,
who
yeah.
put his name out there. So if you go on their website, and which is mentioned all time, forced to
But
vote, but he wasn't that. Yeah,
Cenk used to be if I'm not mistaken, MSNBC or NBC host, and he
yeah,
does go on
MS.
CNN. He had a good relationship with, by the way, condolences to everyone. Larry King passed away because of COVID. And
Oh, the
yeah, he had a
COVID.
good relationship with Larry King. Their interviews are quite interesting. So he had a national profile of
Yeah,
some kind. Certainly more than, Virgil Texas and Briahna. Although Briahna Greyjoy was the campaign communicator for Bernie Sanders, I forget.
yeah, it's pretty huge. Okay, let's go to the next one. I kind of agree with this. So Rondo says first hour was pretty much arguing in a circle. That's kind of the impression that I
Yeah,
got. Okay. We're getting to the funny parts.
makes sense.
So this one says,
Yeah.
Virgil, were you going for a Christopher Hitchens vibe in this debate?
Because
Man,
of
it
the
looked
cigarette type.
too funny. Jim Kirby says, forced to vote was a good idea, but it turned in Jimmy versus TYT and it overshadowed the idea. With Francesca in the middle, steering things up. What do you actually think of Francesca? We never discussed her, and I didn't see her quite doing this.
I'm not sure who she is.
Oh,
Sorry
she's on the
about
Young
that.
Turks
Is
sometimes,
she
but
the Is she the comedian type
Yeah,
girl that
yeah,
with short hair?
yeah,
She kind of like hipster, or yeah.
yeah,
I think I didn't know she. I have no idea how she commented on the issue.
yeah. I
So
didn't
whatever
see
I
that
say is
either. And then it goes on saying,
I
but
she
I'm,
goes. She's in. Sorry,
yeah, no, go ahead.
no. She goes on. There's a British show I always talk about, Novara Media, and she went on there recently. That came to my mind. But yeah, she seems like an interesting character. So I hope it
Oh,
was
for sure. And
good.
she does a lot of things. I mean, I haven't heard her talk about here, but I first discovered in Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera English used to do this short YouTube videos on Facebook like 5 years ago. She was there. Okay, a person goes on saying, but I'm glad Sam and Bree did this and hope this leads into them being friends again. I would like to see Bree talk with the other haters on Force to Vote. I don't know if they were friends before, but it doesn't seem like. I think another comment, we can comment on this about their friendship and how it goes, but I don't know. I felt like they did, yeah.
Yeah, I think this person, I mean, I'm not, no offense, but it's just like went very personal and yeah, I don't know, were they friends
I
before? Did
didn't,
they
yeah, I
break up?
didn't
What
get this
happened? I don't
impression
know.
that they're gonna be
Yeah,
friends after this.
yeah, the personal dramas of the two.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this one,
Anyway,
Jaden says Virgil sipping whiskey and vaping during the debate is literally me. Okay, I thought it was iced tea. It had too much foam. There was no way he was sipping
oh,
on whiskey.
I really, to be honest, I really listen to the debates while
Uh,
like doing other stuff
yeah, no,
and
I
like with
same too.
headphones,
But
so
I
I
saw
don't
his
know.
glass
But I,
once.
yeah, and he didn't get drunk by then, so
No,
I
not at
doubt it
all.
was
I
whiskey.
think it was iced tea. The next one, maybe you can understand this. Bearded Jaeger says Virgil Texas looked like he wandered into this from a Wes Anderson set. Do you know who that is?
Yeah. That definitely. Shout out to Bearded Jaeger because yeah, complete.
Okay,
Uh,
I don't get that
you know,
reference.
have you seen Royal Tenenbaums?
No.
Grand Budapest Hotel. Grand
Yes.
Budapest Hotel is a
Yes.
that's
Few
a
years ago.
that's a
Okay.
everything is everything is symmetrical. People are very
Okay. Yeah.
French
Yeah. Yeah.
looking, and everybody's
Ah. Okay.
smoking, and everybody's very calm, and
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, definitely.
I see.
That's a great shout. I wish I
Yeah.
came up with that.
That's a funny one. He
Yeah.
got
Anyways,
94 likes for his efforts. Okay, the next one.
seven.
Yeah, Chantal Legal. Jimmy, he lives rent free in Seder's head. It does seem like it does seem
That's a
like
good one.
it's the case. That's hilarious. Okay, Marco Salcedo. I just came back to rewatch this. Okay. I just came back to rewatch this after Sam said he was admonished for 3 hours, and he definitely was not. In fact, he was dismissive towards every point Brie made. Also, who is that
Aha.
lady that at the end of the video that comes over to peg Virgil? Okay, forget about that last part. But okay, here's my impressions.
I don't.
Actually, I felt like he
Wait,
wasn't
just
cutting her off, and she wasn't bad. They were having a heated argument, I would say. They were quite hostile towards each other, and beyond not agreeing with the subject, I would say it perhaps even seemed that personally they don't agree on like a lot of other things, or they don't get good, I don't know, energies and vibes. So I would just say that they seem like two people who kind of don't like each other having a heated debate. But I think besides that, they stuck to the rules as fairly as people could in an argument. I thought a debate.
uh, uh, I think with the snide comments, I actually meant what this person in the comments said. He was very dismissive. He was
But he's saying
extremely
no.
dismissive, in
Oh
my
yeah, okay,
opinion.
yeah. Sorry, yeah. My bad. Yeah,
He was very
yeah. That's the
she
thing.
was and I think that led to her becoming angry and somewhat animated, and yeah, like not a pleasant, perhaps as pleasant of debate, but overall I think it was one of the more pleasant debates and more substantial debates I've
Yeah,
seen, because it was between, they knew majority of the
yeah,
stuff they were talking about, they knew what it was, and
yeah.
yeah, I think it was a
I
good debate
wish,
overall.
actually,
I don't
wish
think it was
Virgil would have,
that
would
that
have.
controversial.
Yeah, no, but I think I wish Virgil would have actually intervened more often, because when he did really bring it back to like a specific issue and being like, do you agree with this or not? So I thought he could have intervened more. He would have also had more, a better time if he just like intervened more. He was 3 hours of just chilling there.
I think I think this is as good of a time as he can have. So yeah, in
Maybe.
that mood.
Okay, let's go. Okay. Lakim Nina says this is one of the most depressing things I've seen in months. It's a grand display of how powerless we are, such at any time it looks like there's a tiny window of opportunity to maybe change something. We're so freaked out about which little thing is going to derail it that we're ready to beat the shit out of each other over who's going to ruin opportunity. So I don't really agree with that take. I feel like
Censor yourself, huh?
yeah, I was like, I don't know, I don't want bots to detect me. But I think if you don't agree with an issue, you don't have to unite. You just should try to make the best arguments and leave the person's character out as much as possible. But just because a leftist suggests an idea doesn't mean everybody has to unite over it if you don't agree with the strategy and how good it is or the idea or whatever. Next one. Okay, this one got 250 likes. Danny Taro says, at this point, I'm willing to sacrifice Medicare for all versus M4V, which is microphone for Virgil. Because
I don't get this. I don't get it.
Because his microphone looks like it's, I don't know, from God knows when. And
100 years old?
Yeah, I think people had issues with his audio or something. But
because to be honest, I can't really talk in a microphone from 2012.
Yeah. Well, we just started. Okay, this one. Okay. Some lefties supported forced to vote, others didn't. But we all agree Virgil having a house phone is ridiculous. Did you hear that part? Man, it better not have been his house phone. It better have been like when you call someone from downstairs, I forgot the word. But anyway.
But
if he had a telephone that loud
in this day and age,
in his loud while you do podcasts for a living, I couldn't believe that. That was too funny. Okay, one more.
And I love how nobody even mentioned
it. Yeah, and no, Bree gets fed up at one point. It's like, let me mute him. I don't know why he wasn't on mute. And then, okay, this one actually got 805 likes. Rocket City Rocker says Virgil tags us through this entire video. Looks like he's being forced to watch a video of his dad taking a shower. Man, what else is the poor guy supposed to do?
Yeah, he's just like...
Man, that's why like moderators talk a lot in debates, because they get bored too. You want to get in there as well.
Get in.
Okay, that was it. Okay, those were great. That was really fun.
Oh, what about, I got another one you sent me.
Read it out. Which one is it?
We need a mass movement.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that one because that one's just...
I personally completely disagree with.
Oh really?
I prefer a few selected people in positions of power doing a coup d'etat or something.
Okay. On that note, we'll move on to our next video, but we'll come back to these kind of discussions, actually.